Hey everyone, and welcome back. If you're gearing up for exams, then you've come to the right place. We're about to decode one of the trickiest topics out there, Indian federalism. This is part 2, where we really get into the nitty-gritty of how power works. So let's get right into it.
So think about this for a second. How on earth do you govern a place that has the mind-boggling diversity of an entire continent, but the single identity of a country? That was the exact puzzle the framers of India's constitution had to solve, and their answer was a truly unique political structure, one designed from the ground up to hold this massive, diverse nation together.
Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to start with the absolute foundation, India as a union of states. Then, we'll look at the power grid that divides authority. After that, we'll uncover the center's real power, explore the tensions that this creates, and finish up with the key takeaways you absolutely need for your exams.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning. Choosing federalism wasn't some random decision. It was a very careful, deliberate strategy. The whole idea was to embrace India's incredible diversity while still building a strong, unified nation. And to do that, the Constitution uses some very specific and, frankly, very important language.
Now, this is where you really need to pay attention. Look at the wording here. The Constitution never uses the word federation. Instead, it says union of states, and that was completely intentional. It's meant to emphasize that India is one single integrated whole, and that states don't just get to pack up and leave. So you see, it's a federal system, but with a powerful, unmistakable tilt towards unity. So, okay, if power is shared, how is it actually divided up? Well, the Constitution gives us a really clear blueprint. You can think of it like a massive power grid that maps out exactly who is responsible for what. Let's take a closer look.
This HUD schematic breaks it down perfectly. Over on the left, you've got the union list. This is for the big picture national stuff like defense and foreign affairs. That's all handled by the central government. Then, in the middle, you have the state list for more local matters like agriculture and police. And finally, on the right, there's the concurrent list with shared topics like education where both the center and the states can make laws. It's a pretty logical setup, right?
But what about stuff the framers couldn't possibly have imagined, like, say, cyber laws? Well, that's where residuary powers come in. Anything that's not on those 3 lists automatically, by default, goes to the union government. This is a critical point, guys. It's one of the first major signs that the entire system is built to give the center an edge.
And that brings us to the big twist in the story. While India definitely has a federal structure on paper, it's got what experts call a very strong unitary bias. The Constitution is literally packed with clauses that give the central government some pretty significant powers to override the states.
And you know what? This wasn't some accident or an oversight. As this quote from T.T. Krishnamachari, one of the Constitution's framers, shows, a strong center was seen as absolutely essential. It was the only way they believed they could hold the country together and push for real progress. It was a conscious, deliberate design choice.
So how does this unitary bias actually play out? Well, the center has some serious administrative muscle. For starters, Parliament can literally redraw a state's map. The governor, who's appointed by the center, acts as its agent and can even suggest firing a state government. And get this, the top civil servants in every single state, the IAS and IPS officers, are ultimately controlled by the central government.
And this right here perfectly illustrates the point. Article 257 is a huge deal. It basically gives the central government the power to give direct orders to a state government to make sure its policies are being followed. It is a powerful tool that leaves no doubt about who has the final say.
The center's power becomes crystal clear when you look at 2 things: money and emergencies. Think of it this way. The center controls the main financial tap, which means states are pretty dependent on it for funding. But the ultimate power move? During a national emergency, the government can basically flip a switch, and the whole federal system can transform into a unitary one overnight.
Now, as you can probably guess, this kind of power imbalance doesn't just sit there quietly. Of course not. Over the years, it's led to some major political tensions and constant demands from states for more freedom, or as it's known, more autonomy.
And what you end up with is this constant political tug-of-war. Whenever the center tightens the purse strings, the states pull back, demanding more financial independence. When the center asserts its administrative control, states push back, wanting more say in their own affairs. And it's not just about power and money. When cultural issues like language come up, the fight for regional identity becomes an incredibly powerful force. It's a never-ending negotiation.
And the nature of this relationship has really evolved over time. In the early days, from the 50s to the 60s, one party was in charge pretty much everywhere, so things were relatively smooth. But then, as regional parties got stronger, they started to really challenge the center's top-down approach. And since the 1990s, with the rise of coalition governments, everything is about negotiation and compromise, which has led to a much more dynamic and complex relationship.
Okay, deep breath. We have covered a ton of ground. So let's boil all of this down to the most crucial points that you absolutely have to remember for your exams. Think of this as your super fast revision guide.
If you walk away with nothing else, remember these 4 things. 1. It's a union of states, which means unity always comes first. 2. The 3-list system splits up the power, but it's tilted to favor the center. 3. The center is just plain stronger, thanks to its financial, administrative, and emergency powers. And 4. This whole thing isn't set in stone. It's a living, breathing political negotiation. Nail these 4 concepts, and you've basically mastered the core of this chapter.
And there you have it, a deep dive into the structure of Indian federalism. Just remember, this was part 2 of the chapter. To really get the full picture and be completely prepped for your exams, make sure you watch the other explainers in this series.
Hey, if this explainer helped clear things up for you, just imagine what we can do for your other subjects. For more super clear, exam-focused content just like this, go ahead and hit like, share, and definitely subscribe to the A1 Institute YouTube channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.